And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thanks so much for joining us on another news review. I think the last one before Christmas and probably the last one of the year, unless I get someone to record with me on Christmas Day. Unlikely. And it's great to have Lee Harris back with us again. Lee, thanks so much for giving us your time today.
Absolute pleasure. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. And the first, I think we'll start a story on you. Nice to focus on the guest. And it is this, that you're no longer addicted to news. Now, I would query that because I'm sure you're as addicted as I am. But afternoon all, just so everyone knows, I'm delighted to announce I'm no longer addicted to news. I just got Lee Harris from the X handle Marketplace. Very pleased. Thank you, Elon Musk. So, yes, you've been, rebranded back to Lee again.
For the first time, thankfully. I set that up as addicted to news. Obviously, I had no idea what was in store for me down the line when I set that up. It reminds me a little bit of Carl Benjamin. You know, Carl Benjamin. He's got Sargon of Akkad, and he said the same thing. He said, "I just set it up like years ago." And it's exactly the same with me. I was an anonymous account on X for a long time. I can't remember exactly when I came out. I think it was just before my first GB News appearance. So I think it would have been about 3 or 4 years ago now, or about just over 3 years ago. And at that point, I thought, well, if I'm going to be on the telly, there's no point in me being anonymous on X anymore. So I did it. But the reason I initially did it was because of I run a business, and at the time I wasn't 100% sure, because it was back in sort of 2015, 2016.
You mean you were sensible back then?
I was a bit more sensible, yes. And it wasn't that I didn't want to stand behind my words. It was more the fact that I just didn't want it to mix with my business, right? I just wanted to keep business and politics completely separate. That was it. It was nothing more to it than that. I just wanted my business to be one place and my political opinions to be somewhere else. And I didn't want the two, because you know what the left are like, right? The left will find out where you work, where you live. They'll send in horrible messages. Luckily, it's very difficult to do that with my business. But that was kind of my mindset at the time. And then when I sort of came out, you couldn't change your handle at the time. So I just remained addicted to news. And the reason I picked that was purely because I had a couple of other accounts where I was addicted to. I have a poker account. I used to play a lot of online poker, and I was addicted to poker. And it was just like, okay, Twitter, I was like addicted to news, because I am, and it was a very good description of me. I was very addicted to the news. So that's where it came from. And the one with the S was taken, so I just went with the Z, and it was just a stupid thing like that. So yes, honestly, it's like a massive weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Now I'm on just Lee Harris, because quite often, obviously, at the end of podcasts or, you know, something like that, they'll go, "Where can people find you online?" And everyone's got to go, "It's addicted to with a 2, and then news with a Z." And it's awfully embarrassing. It embarrasses me every time. So yeah, I am genuinely delighted. And it was such an easy system to change it. They say it takes up to 7 days, but it took about 4 or 5 days for me.
Wow.
And yeah, it was free service. They just changed over. Got to be a dormant account if it's already taken. And luckily for me, that account, the Lee Harris account, hadn't ever tweeted. They just got they got the account. So it was a very straightforward process. I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to change their handle.
Well, there you go. You hear it for first, and you can now be following Lee, who still is addicted to news, but is at Lee Harris. Let's go. The first story. I think all these are from your X feed. This is about I think it was Councillor. What's her name? Councillor Susie. She's talking to who leads the Conservative grouping.
Susan Hall.
Yes, I've forgotten her surname. Who leads the Conservative grouping in City Hall, and she's really been a thorn in the side for Sadiq Khan, which is a beautiful position to be in. And here she is talking about the work she's doing, holding Sadiq Khan accountable to the grooming gang cover-up, the Muslim rape gangs that he has turned a blind eye to, and said, of course, it's not happening in London. It's happening in every other city in the UK, but certainly not London. Here's a clip. I might play the whole clip, but here is Susan Hall talking on GB News.
Well, I'm pleased to say, and I'm joined by the leader of London Conservatives in the London Assembly, Susan Hall herself. Susan, thank you so much for joining me again this evening. I watched your interaction with the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. I'm still baffled. It seems to me there's always a deflection. There's never ownership to say, we should have looked at this earlier. You're right. We failed some Londoners. We need to do better. Why is that, Susan Hall?
Well, I don't know. And you've got my colleague, Sean Bailey, there as well. I mean, he won't answer any questions. But I mean, if he thinks I'm going to drop this, he can have another thing coming, because we have got to keep this alive out there. I think in the past, people have shied away. The first clip the clip you played, I was actually in that meeting there, looking a lot younger, I'm afraid, but it was quite some time ago. And of course, all that he used to do then was saying, "Oh, is it because I'm Muslim? Is it my faith?" And people tended to back away a bit, because politicians are always worried about being called racist. Yeah. But things have changed, Alex, thank God. Now, lots of us don't care what they say, because, I mean, I'm called far right because I wave a flag or whatever. It's nonsense. And I tell you what, for the sake of these girls and sometimes boys, we've just got to keep at this. Suddenly now he's saying he's going to leave no stone unturned. What a load of rubbish. Absolute rubbish from this mayor.
Well, not. I think he's going to leave every stone unturned. Might be more, but I mean, Susan Hall is. I remember, and I worked back in City Hall with Peter Whittle, rest in peace, and going to his funeral next week. And I worked for David Curtin and Peter Whittle, and they used to ask, and the mayor Sadiq Khan used to just kind of smirk, and it was this odious little man that he didn't give a damn. And I think Susan's fine out, but she's pushing him, she's holding him to account, she's asking and non-stop, and brilliant, because it can't be that we don't have this problem in London, can it?
No, and what gets me about Sadiq Khan possibly is, I think, from a personal opinion, I dislike him probably more than most most politicians. I mean, possibly even slightly more than Keir Starmer, which is very, very difficult to separate. Not much in it, I've got to admit. But Sadiq Khan really has shown his true colours over the years. And it's funny you mentioned David Curtin, because that, I think, probably one of the Susan Hall is fantastic. We'll go on to her in a second. But one of the most revealing, I think, well, it was two. Susan Hall did one of them, but the other one was David Curtin. And this was this clip that she was referring to that goes back to many years ago. Fantastic clip where David Curtin asked him if he has any knowledge of anything similar happening in London. So it's very, very similar question to Susan Hall. And his instant responses, "Are you asking me that because I'm a Pakistani Muslim?" And David Curtin completely deadpan went, "No, I'm asking you because you're in charge. You're the commissioner for the Metropolitan Police." And it was just a fantastic response. And I don't even think David Curtin was trying to sort of do a gotcha or anything like that. And it just made Sadiq Khan look awful. He's done it. So it was very, and that just gives you an insight into his mindset behind everything. It's all about him. Little girls are getting raped, but how does it affect Sadiq Khan? What is it? And that's what's running through his mind. I can't think of a more vile politician at the moment. But I keep thinking maybe it's because there is a degree of separation from the Labour Party itself when you are a mayor. He's not an MP. Obviously, he is the Labour Party. But I often wonder what the dynamics are within, with his relationship and the Parliamentary Party. I'm absolutely sure they do obviously talk, but there is a degree of separation between what happens there and the slight independence of the Mayor of London, even though there isn't, like I said, there is that direct link. But moving on to Susan, who is genuinely come into her own. She's just fantastic. Yeah. And watching the first clip that went absolutely viral, which couldn't have been more beautifully done. Whether this was intentional by Susan or not, I think it probably was. But the fact that he wouldn't even admit that he understood what a Pakistani rape gang was, like
And you saw her getting exasperated, didn't you? Because she was like, "Why does the person not understand what I'm saying?"
Absolutely, and the beautiful thing is, Sadiq Khan may have thought that that was a clever thing to do. Like, this is going to exonerate me in some way. If I play dumb, it's going to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing. Well, the really bad thing for Sadiq Khan is the grooming gang inquiry. When that finally got the go ahead after dragging the Labour Party kicking and screaming into from that report that was done, that kind of pushed Keir Starmer to actually do it in the end. That did not work well for Sadiq Khan, in as much as that there was a public admission that it was happening. There's a public admission it was happening on a massive scale, including London. And he'd already denied all knowledge. Now, there is a couple of tweets I've done on this, which have done very well, where you look at Sadiq Khan and Mark Rowley both publicly denied knowledge of Pakistani rape gangs. Now, I still to this day cannot understand why they would have done that. And both of them have been bitten in the backside massively. With Mark Rowley, who I think is almost just as bad as Sadiq Khan in some respects, publicly denied that there was anything to do it. Thousands and thousands of cases of now, and he knew that, right? So there's no way that thousands and thousands of cases would have just gone under his radar. So he lied, right? So he lied. That in my view is a form of cover up, right? If someone is asking you about something that happened and you deny knowledge, that is a cover up. Sadiq Khan's exactly the same. He said, right in front of Councillor Susie, I don't know what you're talking about, effectively denying that he understands what that is. And then, of course, there's a leak that comes out that shows that all of these cases passed his desk and he knew about them, right? So we've got, the most senior policeman in the country and the London mayor who has the most individual votes out of, I think, any politician in the country. So he's got a mandate. Two of the most important people in our country turn around and say that they don't know anything, Gov. And then all of a sudden, I do not understand why these two people are still in a job. I mean, you can certainly, I can slightly more understand why Sadiq Khan is there because he's an elected official. Getting rid of him is a lot harder. I would argue you have grounds to get rid of him. Maybe there could be some sort of committee to show you genuinely have been covering this up. But Mark Rowley, I don't understand why Mark Rowley is still there. Someone needs. I mean, if anything, I'm very surprised that Sadiq Khan hasn't sacked him to try and push the blame to him. But there's been so many times that Mark Rowley should have been sacked. But no, watching these clips from Susan Hall, she's not given up. I absolutely love her to bits. She is going to keep going, and she's going to be a thorn in his side. And I absolutely love watching it.
Yeah, and I hope she continues. As she
Oh,
said,
she will. Yeah.
Because Sadiq Khan has been a Teflon politician, but this has to stick to him, and he's been there for like a lifetime.
Yeah, and we shouldn't stop talking about it either. I will regurgitate a couple of posts I've got on a regular basis to keep both of them in people's minds. We should all do that.
Exactly. And you just look at the court cases, like 1 or 2 a week keep appearing. But we're told they're getting a grip on this. And of course, we're told this is historic. And yet many of the survivors talk about it happening today. So it's a huge, and well done to Councillor Susan Hall for using that position. And I think you're right, Leisha has come into her own. So definitely.
Yeah.
But there are lots of other, here we go, this shocking story that actually the media told us a lie. Surely not. Women recognised as first Black Britain by BBC wasn't black but was white. DNA analysis proves Beachy Head woman was light-eyed blonde. I was looking at this in a couple of the stories, and it was, I think, the Telegraph here, and I think the Daily Mail, but then a number of other ones talked about woman recognizes first Black Britain may not have been, or something like that. And it doesn't actually say it was actually white. So it's interesting, the nuances that we always see. But no, shocking that the media try and rewrite our history and come up with a problem which is kind of truth in DNA.
Imagine my shock. That was what I said. I just could not. I could believe it, but the time perfect almost because of this. It came out slightly after Trump said he was going to sue the BBC. So it was yet another example. But we all know this. This is yet another example of the BBC, as you say, rewriting history. And my issues with the BBC started at around 2016. The build up to the Brexit vote. Prior to that, I was quite indifferent about them. And actually, I would say quite a supporter of the BBC. They're a British institution. I believed in the BBC, but what got me was their insistence on not representing both sides of the Brexit debate. And you'd be watching, not that I watched it that regularly, but something like Gardener's World will be on. Completely a non-political program, completely what we think is kind of a benign program, was telling us the benefits of staying in the customs union and how ridiculous it would be if we left. It just exposes the BBC and their constant narrative. We know what their narrative is. They're kind of left-wing, progressive, pro-trans, pro-EU, all of this kind of nonsense, and they embed it into everything. And this story, it just didn't surprise us, probably like everyone, just didn't surprise anybody. And the fact that they jumped on, I think it was in 2016. I didn't really, 2016. It was a series that Black and British, A Forgotten History. I mean, the title in itself is just bloody ludicrous. But they're just desperate. And this is why I've done a couple of posts where you say, if you're British, if you're white, if you're a woman, if you voted for Brexit, if you believe the British people should come first, the BBC absolutely hates you. And I'll get a whole load of grief from people, for saying this. But this is it. This is, if you're white, the BBC hates you. This is a perfect example that you can cite. There was another one that comes to mind. I don't want to change the subject too much. Do you remember they did an article about train drivers, right? And they there was an article out that said the BBC put on their website that says most train drivers are middle-aged or older than middle-aged white men, right? And they got beautifully community noted. Right? And I do know a little bit about this because I used to work in the industry. Beautiful community note that said, look, it takes years to become a train driver. It was absolutely true. It takes a long time for you to learn how to do it. I don't quite understand why. Literally, there's a dead man's handle that you put your foot on and you just go straight. But anyway, it takes years to be. So it said, most people will be, and this is a white country, it said, right? So it's like, yes, most train drivers are going to be older white men. There's an argument for, could you have more women train drivers? That's a perfectly legitimate thing to say. But it's just demographically normal for there to be, middle-aged white men who are train drivers. And of course, the BBC are making out that means we're racist. We are a racist country. And here's an example of it. Another example like this, where they're just desperate, absolutely desperate to deny, native Brits our own blooming history. I utterly despise the BBC. Even on a daily basis, I kind of hate them even more. I do get a lot of grief. I don't know if you're the same. If you ever slag off the BBC on X, it is, out of all the controversial topics that I talk about, the abuse. Yeah. I mean, I've had death threats because I want to cancel the license fee. Now, I have never said, people misunderstand my words, right? People are like, you want to destroy the BBC. Yes, I want to destroy the license fee. Yes. And they kind of don't really see the bit. I always say, I want to destroy the BBC in its current form, right? I'm not here to say it. I'm not going to lie, there is a part of me that wants to see them absolutely destroyed to dust and never again. But I'm not. I'm not quite like that. I believe in a free market. Even if I hate the BBC, if people are willing to pay for it, by all means, crack on. And if they want to take some of the media landscape, not a problem, because people are paying for it. They demand it. I have no issue with that. But I have an issue, like a lot of people, with the license fee and the fact that if I want to sit and watch I don't know, sit here on my computer and stream GB News live in the evening while I'm working or something, I'm watching GB News. I have to pay the BBC to stream live television on my own via YouTube, like GB News. It's absolutely madness. That's what I want to destroy. That's what I want to take down. But the abuse is insane. Absolutely insane. Obviously, I get a lot of support too. The posts do quite well, but yeah, I've been called unpatriotic and for attacking the BBC. I don't get that. I don't get it.
Yeah, it is. We'll move on, but yeah, I saw the other week it was a MasterChef program and had some drag queen on it. I'm thinking, holy crap! I thought this was about food, but no, it's about agenda. How stupid I missed that. So yeah, it's every area of society they're pushing a narrative. There's another narrative that's been pushed, and it was this great picture that the Connie Shaw came across, apparently showing support for pro-Palestinian hunger strikers, includes dressing up in a Holocaust victim with a Hamas triangle stitched on top, sick and twisted derangement all around. And is this utter despising of Israel? And I mean, to connect a horrendous event, the Holocaust, and then to link it with another group, and it's just it's the twisted narrative, I think, which we get from all angles in terms of what's happening in the Middle East.
It's awful, and there's so many angles to this, which I want to. We could speak about this one for literally hours. But what has upset me so much about this is obviously that's just blatantly anti-Semitic. Without a doubt, that is pure anti-Semitism that is on display on the streets of London yet again. But it's the concept of these hunger strikers somehow being the victim in all of this. It's absolutely baffled me that you've got mainstream politicians, if you want to call them that, I guess. A lot of them are independent. I don't think I've seen any mainstream Labour MPs supporting. To be fair to Labour, I did laugh actually. We see that clip of Jeremy Corbyn in the Commons last week, where he stood up and said, these hunger strikes, will you meet with the families, and will you do all of this? And he just stood up and went no, and half the chamber laughed along with me while I was watching it. I thought it was hilarious. But that's what we need to do. You need to laugh in their faces. But I honestly don't understand what possesses you as a human being, especially a politician, to stand up and support people who are choosing to not eat because they have been accused of a crime. Yeah. And we know what some of those crimes are. One of which includes bashing a police officer in the back, a female police officer in the back, with a sledgehammer, fracturing her spine. That's the person I support. That's the person who I will happily stand up for. I'm not going to stand up for. I'm baffled by this. I shouldn't be surprised. None of us should be surprised with Jeremy Corbyn. This is a man who openly said that Hamas are his friends, and he's been over to the Middle East and laid wreaths on terrorist graves. He's a very, very evil, nasty man, in my opinion. And obviously Zara Sultana is a very similar character. But both of them pushing this, and the far left pushing this kind of narrative that David Lammy and Keir Starmer, the death is on your hands. You're going to cause their deaths. No, the only person who's going to cause their deaths if that happens is themselves. And I don't understand the law either. You can't force feed someone when they are compos mentis. When someone is completely within their right mind and they are, which is funny in itself because I think all of them are nuts. But when someone is literally within their right mind, and if they choose to go on a hunger strike, you can't legally force feed them. You can't. That's the law. They have these sets in place. I think I heard yesterday there's around 200 hunger strikes a year, there or thereabouts, and they're all handled very well. I don't know if we've had any deaths of people starving themselves. I think I'd remember if there were prisoners starving themselves and dying in prison. I don't think that's happened. So this is just a very typical far left narrative that they're trying to create. I despise it. I despise all of it. But that picture particularly covers two grounds, and that's the open anti-Semitism that we see on the streets of London. And this comes back to what I would describe as the hate marches. And these hate marches, there's a fantastic. It always brings me back to a clip with Piers Morgan and Douglas Murray.
Yes.
People get very upset when you say that these are A, hate marches, and B, anti-Semitic. There is anti-Semitism on these hate marches. We all know there is. We've all seen it. We've all seen the Met Police making excuses for the word jihad, and we've seen them trying to say that the swastika has various different meanings as well. I mean, we've all seen the anti-Semitism, but if you kind of say that, they're like, no, not everybody. Yes, there might be a few, but hold on, right? If I went to a march in London, let's just say, if I went to a big march in London, like the Unite the Kingdom rally, and I'd have seen people there chanting for the death of black people, I don't think I'd go on week 2. And if I did go on week 2, I definitely wouldn't go by week 3. If they were there on week 2, I would not attend that march. I would not want to be associated with people who are overtly racist and are literally calling for things that I despise, utterly sick and vile things. So you've got to ask yourself, right? Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of people on those marches who are genuinely just don't hate Jews, but they are at the very minimum turning a blind eye to people that do, which makes them complicit, in my view. I have no sympathy left. I would have had sympathy left if we were a month or 2 into these hate marches. There are going to be people on there that might not have got the message, don't really realise what's been going on. But how long have they been going on for now? What, 2 years?
Yeah, 2
a bit
years.
longer.
Non-stop.
By now, the type of people that go on those marches. You've seen it on the telly. If you are attending a march like that, then you are complicit in anti-Semitism and Jew hate, in my view.
I agree. Well, let's move on to another group that the Labour Party don't seem to have any time for, and that is farmers. Completely different on the economic side. Here, 2 short clips, Leader, you put up about Keir Starmer talking about this and the utter disregard he has for those who actually feed the nation. Here are these 2 clips.
It doesn't make it targeted. It is a necessary consequence of the decisions that we've taken. But I can assure you, as you would expect, the president of the NFU has raised this issue with me on more than one occasion.
Not just the president of the NFU.
Well, I appreciate that.
You've heard it from Cat Smith. You've heard it from my Select Committee. You've heard it from the Welsh Affairs Select Committee. You've heard it from the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee. These are all select committees, incidentally, that have majorities from the Labour Party, and they have all produced unanimous reports calling for this to be paused and rethought. You don't have to listen to me. You don't even have to listen to the farmers out there. You don't have to listen to the president of the NFU. But why do you not listen to your own party colleagues?
I do listen to party colleagues all the time.
And then do what you're going to do anyway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carmichael.
Look at that face.
I know. Here is the other short clip.
Is the Prime Minister aware that some farmers who have terminal diagnosis now are actively planning to expedite their own deaths so they hit before April? Is he aware of that?
I've had discussions with a number of individuals who've drawn all manner of things to my attention.
All manner of things to his attention. Again, you look sometimes, you think, do you not get it? What you're, for the sake of a few £100 million, you're trying to destroy the system we have to feed the country. We can fly food in. Oh, well, that'll affect the climate alarmism side. Yeah, but what your thoughts?
Well, it is. I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. And let's not forget, before I sort of go on to that, let's not forget, whilst we're trying to raise or 500 million from inheritance tax on farmers, we're at the same time giving 500 million to foreign farmers, right? So this is literally neutral, right? We're doing this for absolutely no benefit to the British public at all, especially not farmers. And it makes you wonder. I hate using the word conspiracy theory because a lot of these conspiracy theories actually come true, right? And one of them is obviously the meetings that I mean, Lewis Brackell has been fantastic on this. And he's trying to get what happened in the minutes of the meetings where they've met with these really big, Bill
And he's
Gates.
like a dog with a bone. It's so good.
Yeah, I love Lewis. And he's trying to get, they won't release what they've discussed, I don't think, but they certainly have admitted that the meetings have taken place. I mean, we knew about some of them anyway, because I think, we've seen that they've been in the press. But I'm starting to think that there's got to be something else behind this decision. This isn't to raise 500 million. This has got nothing to do with raising the money, because like I said, there's no net gain to us as a country. We're giving it away anyway. We're giving almost exactly the same amount of money away to foreign farmers. They're not doing it for that reason. And I am now starting to believe that this is for a much bigger reason. They want to transfer the ownership of land from farmers to the state, so they have control over where they can put their blooming solar panels, over the type of farming that we do, so they can control, maybe have better control over climate targets, these ludicrous, completely unnecessary climate targets, to change our behavior, all of that sort of thing. It's not that I've refused to believe it, but I'm the sort of person, probably like most sensible people, you do want to wait a little bit to try and find out a bit more, see if there's any evidence of this, to see whether something's going to come out, maybe something can come out via freedom of information request that kind of confirms our suspicions. But what else could it be? Why is he doing this? So there's two. I mean, Alistair Carmichael from the Lib Dems, not a big fan of the Lib Dems, but what a fantastic, I mean, he couldn't have laid it out better. He's basically said, not basically, he has said and reiterated, everybody, every single committee that you have gone to has unanimously said, at the very minimum, pause and rethink this policy, at the very minimum, including the NFU. And a lot of these, if not all of these committees, are Labour led. That they have a majority of Labour MPs on these committees, and they're still ignoring them. I mean, what do you call the leader of a country who ignores all of the advice that's given to them and decides to do their own thing anyway? You call them a dictator. I mean, that's literally the actions of a dictator, to ignore everybody and just go, well, I'm doing it anyway, for no financial gain. I am absolutely baffled, but by their and the political capital that they're using up as well on this. They're not. This is not a popular policy with all sides of the political spectrum. Sure, there's a few on the far left, but it's not particularly like top of the agenda for people who are on the progressive left. They've got other things they want to. They're not that bothered about attacking farmers. I'm sure they've got a view on inheritance tax being a good thing anyway. We know the left love that, ripping away everything that you've earned. But so it is more of a right wing, policy to want to remove inheritance tax. I think it's an awful, horrific tax, and it should be banned completely, in my view. But to be so insistent about this and spend so much political capital on this, to sit in front of a select committee and get your backside handed to you, and then I'm not even talking started on the fact that there is strong evidence of farmers who are expediting their own death to make sure they don't get caught in this new inheritance tax. I mean, the guy, I've used this word a few times with Keir Starmer, and I don't think it's an overstatement. I do believe the man is evil. I do. I think, because I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that we're doing this for no financial gain, and the hell that we're putting our farmers through, the people that produce the country's food. I couldn't do it. And I think 99.9% of people couldn't do it either.
And yet, is it one Labour MP got the whip removed for Define?
Yes.
So they're all,
Welsh MP.
Let's destroy our food industry. Brilliant. This sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, he's the only MP that isn't banned from Jeremy Clarkson's pub. He was I can't remember the guy's name now, so I'm very sorry. But yeah, I think he's a Welsh MP who has a lot of farmers in his constituency, and fair play to him, for just doing what's right. And taking the whip away from someone because you don't want farmers to commit suicide, and you think that the inheritance tax is wrong. To lose the whip for something like that is insane. I honestly, I keep thinking it's not going to happen, but I don't know. It looks like it's going to.
It looks like. Let me. It is. I was looking at here. Let me share that. There it is. So Labour MP. What's his name? Oh, Marcus Campbell.
That's it.
Marcus Campbell Saviours. Credit to him for actually doing what you're voted in to do, which is standing up for your constituents and not just voting along party lines. So,
if this was raising 3 billion, 4 billion, and it was going directly back into the coffers, I mean, I'd still disagree with it, but at least there'd be some benefit to it.
Yeah.
At least you'd be able to say, look, there is some benefit to it. But, on the same, literally, was it yesterday? They confirmed they're spending 8 billion on rejoining Erasmus, right? They can just go, yeah, let's spend 8 billion like that. 8 billion. And yet they're happy for farmers to potentially take their own lives because to avoid this inheritance tax for 500 million. You look at those two numbers, they're not even in the same ballpark. And again, we're giving that money to foreign farmers. It's just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. I don't get it. I don't understand.
It is. Let's go with two. We started with a good news story that Lee's no longer addicted to news, and let's go with this one, which is on Dan Wootton. And I think Dan is one of the nicest people you could meet, genuine people, and it's great to see what he is doing after he lost his job. Not even being his fault with GB News, and has now passed 600,000 subscribers with a third of a billion views. I say it better than 340 million. A third of a billion, and he's gold fan. But no, he's and I know I've been on a show a few times. I know you've been on, Lee, and he's a genuinely good guy. And what he's doing is, I guess, is part of the way that we are winning in getting the message out.
Absolutely. Dan, like you said, is the nicest person, one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's honest, decent. I've known him for a little bit now. Met him a few times in person as well. I think we just did I'm just fresh out of doing his, recording his Christmas special. So I've actually seen his studio, which, by the way, is fantastic. Absolutely brilliant setup he's got there.
It's on my 2026 list to make sure I see it.
You got to do it. It is a fantastic setup. And he put on this really nice spread as well. So the food was fantastic. So I didn't have much of it, to be honest. But no, he's. I met him at the United Kingdom rallies as well. But I've known Dan for a little while, and he's been nothing but absolutely lovely to me. And I'm so pleased. I knew he would. Like I even on his first show, I knew that he would do really well. He's born to do this. He's a fantastic at what he does. But like you said, it is a reflection of where the people's attention span is with media and news now. And he's doing numbers bigger than mainstream channels.
Yeah.
And it's not just him. There are other people that are doing really well. All of these podcasts are doing fantastic well. Trigonometry, Heretics, Dan's Outspoken. There are more, and you really do see this. I mean, it's been happening for a long time, hasn't it? This shift across to independent media, and it's absolutely wonderful to see. He doesn't hold back either. He absolutely goes for it, and that's why I've always liked Dan. I mean, I thought it was really devastating that GB News. I as I said on his show, I've got a bit of a soft spot for GB News. They were the people who gave me my platform to start with. They contacted me. They stuck with me. I did 2 years, or I think it was 2 and a bit years of just doing Zoom with them. Yeah. And then and I've done a year or so of being in the studio with them as well. So for them to put someone like me on the telly, I do have a soft spot for them for doing that. But people make mistakes, and I think GB News obviously have made mistakes. I don't think that they should have got rid of Dan at all. There is an argument about Lawrence. Honestly, I don't think I wouldn't have done it. I would have just suspended Lawrence. I wouldn't have even punished Dan at all. I don't think he did anything wrong at all. I would have just maybe at the very most, which he did, by the way, immediately just apologise for what people saw on the telly. That's pretty standard. I don't think anyone would have thought anything less of him for doing that. He shouldn't have gone anywhere. And that was his show, the Dan Wootton show. He built that from scratch himself, right from the start. It was him. And I think it was a bad decision by GB News to do that. But I think it's been great for Dan, in as much as that he's going to do well in whatever he does, without a doubt. And this, I hope. I mean, I don't know what his financial situation is, but I don't think he's going to have to worry. Looking at the numbers he's doing on YouTube. So maybe everything happens in life for a reason. But I'm just so pleased for him. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. He is a fantastic person. His show is absolutely brilliant. I do watch it very regularly. It is great. And I think it is a sign of the times. Would I say that this is the end of GB News because everything's moving over to independent media? No, I wouldn't say that. And I do think GB News has a very important place still, even though like everyone, I'm moving over to independent media in terms of my viewership. I still regularly watch GB News. And I think it's very important that GB News stay on the pitch, right? If GB News wasn't there, just think about what it was like before GB News. Yep. If you were to switch the telly on, I mean, I only watched the news was to clip it and show how left wing it was, essentially. And you've got what? ITV, Channel 5, Sky News, BBC News, Channel 4, all left wing, all sing from the same hymn sheet, all spreading the same narrative. Yep. We had nothing. There was no representation for people like us on the right, and despised it. So when GB News came along, it was such a breath of fresh air. And don't get me wrong, like I said, they've made mistakes, but if they are now they're on the pitch, right? That gives normies, so not people like us. People like us, we find our media, we're quite happy with that. But there are a load of people who aren't, a bit like my wife, for example, just not interested that much in following the news that much. There is no representation of another opinion on mainstream television until GB News came along. Now, I know they're criticised for being Ofcom friendly, right? But they have to be, right? If you want to be on the pitch, you've got to be Ofcom friendly. And I give the same kind of analogy, is that YouTubers are the same, right? So Carl Benjamin, I mean, Dan will agree with this as well. He will totally agree with this. They have to kind of temper a little bit what they say on YouTube to make sure they don't get any strikes or taking their YouTube channel taken down. And they follow those rules, rightly follow those rules to keep their YouTube channel. That is exactly the same as what GB News are doing with Ofcom. I don't like it. I don't like it. I hate Ofcom. Ofcom is run by the BBC. Essentially, it's packed full of ex-BBC staffers, earning, by the way, some of them more than the bloody Prime Minister. It's genuinely a job for it's very incestuous, and I've come to the conclusion that you could just scrap Ofcom. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. Why? No one's really watching the telly anymore anyway. We're all watching independent media, and that's why, by the way, that they're trying now to regulate independent media by leaning on people like YouTube and X and all these independent media providers. They're what's the word? Excuse my language, pissing in the wind on that one. It doesn't matter what Ofcom do. It doesn't matter what this new Safety Act, online safety bill does. And I know that if they get shut down somewhere else, they're just going to pop up somewhere else. And my guess is if they continue pushing this authoritarian censorship on independent media, we're all going to end up on American servers. That's what's going to happen. We're all going to end up on Rumble and stuff like that. If they're going to monitor, put their foot down on that side of it, we'll end up in America, and then they won't be able to do anything.
Yeah, no,
and that's how I see it go. It depends what happens, but if Ofcom do, turn the screw on X and other people like that, we're just going to be, everything is just going to be on American servers. There's absolutely nothing they can do about it. It's a battle they can't win.
It's true, but okay, let's show a clip and then I'll bring the news article of someone else who has an issue with the BBC, certainly, and Ofcom to the tune of $10 billion. So here's Trump's clip, and then it'll bring up the front page, which will explain what he's talking about.
In a little while, you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally, they put words in my mouth. They had me saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say. And the beautiful words that I said, right? The beautiful words. Talking about patriotism and all of the good things that I said, they didn't say that, but they put terrible words. They actually have me speaking with words that I never said. And they got caught because I believe somebody at BBC said, this is so bad, it has to be reported. That's called fake news. So we'll be filing that suit probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning. I want to thank all of
I love him.
It's beautiful. Here's the front page. I think it was the Guardian, which just puts what he was talking about in a quick headline. There you go. Donald Trump sues BBC for up to $10 billion over edit of January 6th speech. I was kind of, when I first heard it, I thought it was 10 million. I thought, and it was in the car. I'm talking to my younger son. I said, 10 million? That doesn't sound like much. And they said, no, Dad, it's $1 billion.
There was a bit of a miss. There still is, I think. I've seen people report $5 billion. I think GB News put out 5 billion, and then I sort of went, is it 5 billion or 10 billion? And then I looked across a lot of the main newspaper sources online, and they're all saying 10 billion. I think Guardian said 10 billion. Someone else said 10 billion. But yeah, there was this slight ambiguity. And I thought maybe it was the exchange rate or something, between dollars and pounds, and that was the difference. But I still think 10 billion is about 6. Was it 6 or something billion?
Yeah.
So it's closer to the 5 billion. But what I did laugh about that particular clip, by the way, was when he said about AI. Did you notice that all of the, like the news agents and all of the kind of far left were jumping on that? Like, look, he's lying again. Look, he's saying that we used AI and all of that. Actually, right, initially I recoiled a little bit when Trump said about the AI. I'm not going to lie. But then I thought about it and thought, actually, he's within his rights to think that might be what they've done.
Yeah.
Right. So, he doesn't know what they've done. In fact, if anything, that could have been a calculated way of saying we don't know how they've done it, but we're going to damn well find out how they've done it or what they did.
Because we're slowly learning out. So he's just asking the questions.
Yeah. And all the left are coming in saying, well, he's not going to win anyway. It's all ridiculous. And I've seen quite a few, career BBC mainstream people that have been interviewed on GB News and other channels just saying, no, won't give him a penny. And it's utterly ridiculous. And it's absolutely baffled me, this. Again, there's no logic to the defense. Like Ed Davey. To be honest, I know Ed Davey's been probably one of the most vocal people about this, but they're all the same. They all think the same as Ed Davey. He's saying that, we should defend the BBC. We should protect the BBC because they lied. And I can't get my head around that. I know the Lib Dems have no moral compass. This is a party that call themselves the Liberal Democrats, and openly at one point said they'd reverse Brexit without a referendum. Yes. They just take us straight back into the European. They don't give a damn what the public think about Brexit or the European Union. They take us unilaterally take us back into the European Union anyway. So I'm not surprised by this response, but I just don't understand how you can articulate that argument in public to say, look, the BBC, what they all should be saying is the BBC didn't make a mistake. I hate that. what they accidentally spliced them together. Oh, whoops! This was a very deliberately planned decision to make Donald Trump say something he didn't say. It is the epitome. It is the exact definition of fake news. Their reputation, in my view, has already been trashed anyway, especially over the years with the British public. Globally, their reputation has been trashed even more so with, it doesn't matter what side you take with the conflict in Gaza. The point is they have misrepresented multiple times since that started. And it's very, very obvious that they have an anti-Israel stance. I won't go as far as say they're anti-Semitic, but they certainly had a very anti-Israel stance, and they've had to release multiple apologies. There was an article, a report, done that showed that they'd broken their own guidelines 1,500 times, 1,500 times during that period. They've already trashed their reputation, the BBC. How you could stand up and defend this on top of everything else that's happened, I don't get.
But again, but one of the lines was it didn't affect the US, it was only in the UK, therefore it doesn't have a right to sue. But then Eric Tario, Proud Boys, was interviewed, a few days ago, and he said that clip was used in his J6 trial. Therefore, are there many people in jail because of that? I mean, they're up to there were 900 at one point people actually held after the J6. How many of those were sent to jail because a jury or court heard that clip? So they could be directly responsible for many people being in jail, and we don't know yet.
That was a bombshell. I'm actually annoyed with myself. I completely forgot to post about that. That is a bombshell in my view. If that is true, that clip was shown in court to help prosecute and send someone to prison, the BBC are in a huge world of trouble. I mean, they've got to be, surely, for something like that. But this whole thing about the fact that it only aired in the UK and all of that, yes, but we live in a world now where something can be clipped in the UK, put on X, and everyone sees it anyway. Yep. I don't know if that happened, I've got to admit, but I would assume it did. I mean, you spend your time on YouTube. Everything's clipped, isn't it? If you want to find something that happened on the BBC, you can normally find, if you search hard enough, you can find it. Yep. So I would imagine that this would have been available in the US anyway. So I don't completely buy that thing that it was only aired in the UK. But they showed it. There are, by the way, voters, American voters that were in the UK at the time that could have seen it. And it, on the flip side of that, it doesn't matter as much either, because they are our closest ally, and they have, essentially put words into the mouth of the most powerful man, and again, our ally, the most powerful man in the world. There has got to be consequences. They can't just say sorry and it's just done with. There is an inherent problem with the BBC that is woven into the fabric of the BBC. They hate Trump, they hate Brexit, they hate anyone on the right, they hate women, they hate the working class, they hate this country. All of their output is anti-British. Even as much as my daughter would watch horrible histories quite often, right? She's only 9, and I sort of walk in there and I'm like, they're saying that everything that we thought was made in the UK actually wasn't. We didn't do anything good in our history and all of that, and what they're doing. It's just so. They can't be trusted to be impartial, and I'm really glad that this has happened in a way. Big kudos to the whistleblower who's just a graphic designer, as I understand it, who blew the whistle on this. The actual waves that this has caused is huge. A lot of people said to me, "Do I really think that this is what's gonna be the outcome of this?" Honestly, I think it's very hard to work out exactly what's going to happen. I don't get me wrong, to all the people who I think that the BBC are going to be sued for 10 billion. They might be sued for 10 billion, but they certainly won't pay 10 billion. I think we are all aware of that, but that's certainly a good starting point, right? And almost certainly they'll settle out of court. is my view. I mean, I could be completely wrong. It's only a guess, but my view is they'll probably settle out of court. There's no. What do you think?
No, and I agree. They'll settle out of court just like all the other US networks settled out of court.
Yeah.
But well, I won't even know 2 or 3 minutes. But my big issue is that we're told, this happened and it was a one-off or whatever, and a rogue producer. Well, maybe this has happened hundreds of times, thousands of times. Who knows what we have seen on the BBC? How many stories have been fabricated to give another angle? So you simply don't know. So does that mean every story now needs to be checked up? Every documentary?
Didn't he? You're absolutely right. Didn't he hint actually to say that there is more? That they already have found more that they've done. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the BBC are probably, very concerned about their previous output now, because it wouldn't surprise me if they got people running through like the old versions of things they put out online already. But yeah, he's hinted that there is more. But they're going to want to avoid this discovery process if they engage. But the sheer arrogance, by the way, of saying we're going to fight this to the end. Fight what exactly? You've already admitted. You have admitted guilt. This is literally an open and shut case. What are you going to defend? What I don't understand. I admit they must make an attempt to try and bring down the amount that they're being sued. I get that, but you can't defend this. You're going into this as the Trump team have played this brilliantly. They prized that apology out of them, which means they have grounds to sue, and they've taken it to a Florida court. I was speculating that, let's just say they do win and the BBC just stick their fingers up and say, yeah, but you've won, but we're not giving you a penny, like a lot of these career BBC people say. Do you know what I think Trump will do? I think he'd kick the BBC out of America.
Yeah.
Or he'll send the bailiffs round. If they've got offices in the US, they'll send the bailiffs round. They'll take all of their stuff, and Trump will just ban them from the White House. I mean, wouldn't that be brilliant?
That'd be great to be there with the U-Haul vans and film it. That'd be such good.
Oh,
TV.
It'd be amazing if we saw that. But either way, the BBC, I think the license fee is coming to an end. I mean, even if the BBC managed to get away with this with very, very little financial penalty,
if
reform win the next election and they follow through on their promises, which I believe they would, they're gone anyway. The license fee's gone anyway. If I was running the BBC right now, I would not be focused on anything other than setting themselves up for a subscription model. They've already got the infrastructure in place. It actually wouldn't be that much of a difficult transition for them. Just put all of the. You probably have to get rid of a whole bunch of radio stations, but start advertising on your radio stations. I'd start doing that now. I'd start at least preparing to do that now. Again with the television as well. Start preparing to do product placements and all of that kind of stuff. That's what the BBC should be focused on, and they won't, because they're arrogant and they believe that they'll be protected by the government. But we've got to obviously get rid of this Labour Party first, because if anything happens under the Labour Party, I can see them spending billions on rescuing the BBC without batting an eyelid. But that would be a stupid decision, if knowing that they're going to lose in the next election, because I do believe that Farage will follow through and they will cancel the TV license anyway.
I agree. Well, on that point, we can't put in our story. It's not going to happen. So, Lee, really appreciate you coming on. Always good to catch up with you. And
Pleasure.
Glad you've got your name back. So we'll have a catch up in the new year. But thank you for your time today.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that.